Hello everybody and welcome to this ForNAV 5.0 webinar. Good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're located. So I'm Jan Sillemann and I have Mark Brummel with me today. And just before we get started, we have a few housekeeping stuff that we like to share with you. So one is, if you have questions as we go along, please use the questionnaire tool in the webinar menu. We also have Michael with us, and he will be overviewing that during the presentation. And if he believes it's relevant as we go along, he will interrupt us. And if he believes it's better to do it at the end, he will do so. And the other thing is that this recording will be available on our YouTube channel, and that will happen either later today or tomorrow morning at the latest. So with that, I'd like to hand over to you, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Jan, and hello everyone. As Jan said, today we're going to talk about ForNAV version 5. My name is Mark, and I was just looking up when we did the first What's New webinar. It was What's New in ForNAV version 2, and I looked it up. It was the 21st of May 2017, and we proudly talked about converting reports from classic to 3-tier. And I was just thinking back that how little did we know how simple that was compared to today's challenges with the cloud and all of the challenges that gives us to work with. So for today, I'm co-presenting with Jan, and Jan is making my life a little bit easier because he is going to do one of the demos. We're going to do it together, so that'll be fun. If we look at the agenda, then you will probably recognize most of it. We broke up the agenda into the modules that we ship to you. The first module is, of course, the converter. I'll tell you what's new and what's enhanced in that. And then we'll dive into the designer, where Jan and I will co-present. We have the report back. We have loads and loads of new and enhanced reports that we're going to tell you about. And then we have added a new module to ForNAV, which is the direct printing module. And this allows you to do direct printing from shop floor. So if you have labels and you want the labels to be printed directly when somebody releases a production order, then this is what you can use. And like Jan said, we have time for Q&A. We should have some time at the end. Or if your question is important, then Michael will interrupt us and we will handle the question immediately. So with ForNAV version 5, we can proudly say that ForNAV is compatible with Business Central Wave 2, both on-prem and hosted by Microsoft, where we are found on AppSource. And with that being said, we are keeping our promise to you to support you on each and every version of NAV and Business Central, no matter how you are using it. If you install it on your own hardware, if you host it, if you virtualize it, and with this release, we even support you if you are containerized on Docker. So this is one of the new features. We can now work with Docker. One of the challenges when working with Docker is not only the fact that you have to talk to Docker via the API. Freddie was a great help with us to make that happen. But also we have to upload the DLL, and normally you have to use PowerShell for that. But Michael found a neat way to avoid that, and we can actually push the ForNAV DLL into your Docker, so you don't have to worry about that. You just connect your designer to Docker. The designer will recognize that it's a Docker image and will push the DLL into the Docker image for you, making your life as easy as possible, like we always try to do. So let's start with the converter. The converter contains two very important updates. First, we have enhanced our conversion story, where you are familiar with the fact that we convert from Classic and RTC to ForNAV, but now we have enhanced that so you can directly go from basically any version of Navision directly into Business Central Wave 2. So all you have to do is you take your old Navision, which theoretically can go back to Navision Financials 1.0, and you export the reports that you want to work with Business Central to a text file. And without any in-between steps, you convert it to an extension and you upload it to Wave 2, and it should directly work. Of course, there have been a lot of schema changes and code changes during the years, and we cannot catch each and every one of those code changes. So it may be that your developer has to make a couple of small changes, but that should be fairly easy to do. I'll demo this in a minute. Another thing that we've added is the fact that we can convert from Business Central on-prem to cloud and vice versa. And this is especially convenient for partners that have a report pack or reusable reports, and part of their customer base is on-prem and part of their customer base is on the cloud. On-prem, we can still leverage the .NET, the power of .NET framework, and in the cloud we don't have that anymore. So in the cloud we have to connect to our Azure printing service, and the converter will basically handle the rewiring of the .NET and the Azure printing service for you, making it easy for you to reuse existing IP on both on-prem and cloud. And of course, before we go into the demo, we know that lots of you guys use our converter to convert your own code. We really like that this is going on and that we can help you make your life easier there. We continuously get requests from you guys with great ideas on how to improve the tool. And whenever we have time to process that feedback, we make the converter smarter, and the converter that you can now download from the website is the best converter that we shipped so far, with all of the great feedback that we got from you guys. So with that, let's dive into the demo. And for this demo, I have a report file that comes from Navision version 5 W1. You can see that the report is created 12 years ago. This is the VAT statement. The file also contains the customer top 10 list and the order confirmation, report 205. Not the easiest reports that are in the NAV system. And what I can do in my ForNAV converter is I can point my ForNAV converter to the app file that I will be using. I'll get back a little bit to that in a bit. The second step is that I point my input file to the file that I just showed you in my notepad. My output file is pointing to an empty folder on my D drive. In theory, I can write directly to my extension, but it's my personal preference to write to a folder. So just in case something goes wrong, I can quickly delete the files and reconvert. I'm telling the converter that I want to make this report work with BC Cloud, which means that dependency will be injected on our Azure printing service. If I choose to convert them to Business Central on-prem, it will point to our .NET DLL instead. In the Advanced tab, the only thing I do is I split my output to one file per object. Otherwise, I will just get one big AL file with 3 reports, which is not nice to work with. And then I just hit convert, and then it will pick up the text file. Compare the text file with the symbols that I have in my app file, and then it will generate the AL files for me that I can use in my project. Of course, I need to have a running project in Visual Studio Code with a dependency on the ForNAV Azure printing service. And I have to tell it which object IDs I want to use. And to speed up the webinar today, we have a lot of demos. I have prepared that. Here, if I look at my app.json file, you can see that I have a dependency on system app, base app, and ForNAV core. and I just tell my app to use anything, basically anything between 50 and 90,000 as a report ID. You can see that the compiler is only giving me 3 warnings. This is something that we keep in our backlog to work on, because these will be errors in the next version. But for now, it will just be fine, and these reports will run. And then if you look at my launch.json file, it will push it into my sandbox. This is a Danish sandbox that we will be using for our demos today. And I have already prepared pushing the extension. If I search in my sandbox for the customer top 10 list, you will see that I have a converted customer top 10 list, which will show me my Navision 5.0 report directly in Business Central. You can see that it has added the design flag, which allows you to design this report directly from the web client without any knowledge of how our AL programming works. The request page has been converted from the request form. All of that has been taken care of, and I can just preview my report, and it will give us the beautiful look and feel that we had in the old days with the old versions of Navision, with the asterisks as a graph. And you can see that I actually have some refactoring to do, because for some strange reason it prints the same customer number. But I'm pretty sure that if I dive into this, I think if I remember it from the top of my head, this is a with statement, which is handled differently in this version of Business Central than it was in the previous version of Business Central. So with that, we did the demo of the converter to push directly from older versions of Navision to Business Central Wave 2. Let's make a bridge to the designer. Jan is going to demo you how to create a brand new report from scratch with the no-code principle. So this is something that can be done by functional consultants or even power users. No knowledge of programming is required to make that work. But in order to do that, we have to make a connection between the ForNAV Designer and the sandbox, and I'm going to show you how to make that work. This works the same in the designer and in the converter. They both share the same connection principles. When I did my demo with the converter, I used an app file. App files, as you know, they can be found here. App files contain symbolic information about your AL code, table information, page information, report information. And we can reuse that same information when we convert reports from Classic to AL. We also use that if you want to use the converter to convert your ISV solutions. But if I click on this 3 dots, I get a list of options that I can choose from to connect my converter to Business Central or NAV. These 3 dots open the same screen as that I have here in my designer with settings, with my 3 dots right here. It's exactly the same screen. And if we look at this list, you will probably recognize a couple of options from the old days, where the Business Central or NAV table export is the easiest way to connect ForNav to your C-side. You simply open C-side and you open all of the table objects to a file, and then we have all the information that we need for you to design beautiful reports. And if you don't have a development license, you can actually run one of our code units, and it will use the object table and the file table to contain the same information. All we need to know is how your tables and files are connected in order to make this work. If you want to know if it works, you can actually press the test button, and in this case it will tell me that it doesn't work. And of course, if I point it to something that exists, it will tell me that it's fine. The OData is probably that most of you are most familiar with. This is when we connect the designer to the service tier using a web service. You can use either the page web service that comes out of the box with the Microsoft DVD, or you can use our enhanced page that will give us a little bit more information about table relations. And this will give you a live connection to the database where if you make schema changes, you don't have to export the same information over and over again. Then we have the option to point to a Business Central extension project where you connect the converter and the designer to an extension project that you're currently working with in Visual Studio Code, which can be on-prem. Or if you want, you can also connect it directly to the service tier. And this is actually the recommended way of working with Business Central on-premise, where you point us to the correct server. And this is where the difference between the old OData and the new Business Central on-premise is that we actually connect directly into the Business Central API. And this allows us a little bit more advanced options, like we're pushing an extension into your Business Central that helps us communicate and give us the information that we need in order for you to work with ForNAV in the easiest way. If you like to work with sandboxes, or you want to quickly build a report for a customer when you're on site, like Jan is going to show you in a minute, then you can connect ForNAV directly to a sandbox. If you are part of the Active Directory family, then you can just use the sign-in option. If you are using a customer's Active Directory, then you have to set this flag, and some magic will happen in the background to sign you into the company. And this is where Jan will take over. Jan will sign in to our sandbox, and he will create a brand new report from scratch in 5 minutes. So with that, Jan, I will make you presenter, and then the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for the challenge. I guess the reason why I got this challenge is that if I can do it, anybody can do it. So let me put a bit of pressure on myself. Well, first of all, let me tell you that what I have here is a standard BC cloud, and all I did is that I installed the ForNAV app from AppSource. So, like I said, let me just put a little bit of pressure on myself and start the countdown at 5 minutes. Was that what you said, Mark?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's see if that works.
Here we go. So,
don't talk too much.
What I'll do is that I'll open the ForNAV Designer, and as Mark said, I will basically take over where he sort of left with connecting to my cloud instance. So I have to sign in like this, and then I have to select which sandbox and which company I want to work on, and then I can do a test, and hopefully that's fine. Everything seems valid. That's good. So let's just OK this and go back to the designer and create a new report. So what I do is I want to use a template from our report gallery, and let's just keep this simple. So I do a list template, and of course I select the AL extension. And then what happens is that ForNAV will now generate the report for me, or at least the template. What we do automatically here is that we actually figure out which is the next available object number, and we also give it a name saying this is ForNAV and then that object number, but let's just change that into something else just to make sure that you know I'm not in any way cheating here. I also want to, normally when we do the demos, we do it on the customer table, but let's just show how easy it is to work with other tables. So let's just take the vendor table instead as the example here. So far, so good. So what I need to do now is that I need to save this data set to my cloud instance. So basically what we do for you now is we create and we upload the extension. Now I can start building my report, and as you know, in ForNAV we have full access to all the fields, all the captions, including extended ones. So let me just select the number and the name. And let's just make sure that we select the same as the header. So let's just go up here to the caption. I just need to move this thing around, sorry. So let's take the captions and again the name and the number and put that into the header. So what I can do now is that I can actually preview and see how this would look like in real life. I just need to identify myself again, and then I get a preview here. And this is more or less what I wanted to see, but there's a few things that I like to change. So I like a more nicer heading here. And you can also see that I actually have a problem here with the date because the field is not large enough. So let's go back to the designer again. Here we are, and let's just make the header a bit nicer. So let's just add some color and some bold and some size. Here we are. And then I have this date field where I basically have two options, because I could go in and say it should auto fit. That means it will shrink the font so it fits, but I actually like to just expand the field a little bit. So I think it's better now. So let me just do another preview and see how it looks like. It should be here in a second. Here we go. Now this is much better. This is exactly the report I have been dreaming about all day long. So I'm happy with this. I close this down. I go back to the designer, and basically all I need to do now is that I need to add this to a page, because of course I want my users to actually be able to run this report from a page. So let's just go back here and say that we want to extend a page. And what happens now is that I can actually call into the BC pages to find the page that I'm looking for. So let's just find the vendor list. Here we go. And now I can save this on the server. And again, it creates and upload the extension, and then I can go to my Business Central. We have that here. We go into the vendors. And we go to the report. And here you have ForNAV Web 02. And I can run that report that I just did. So what happened to time? Okay, 5 minutes, 27 seconds. Sorry, Mark. It took a little bit longer than expected.
But you created the connection, so that's you're forgiven.
Thank you. You like it?
It's perfect.
Good. Can I show just one more thing very quickly?
Of course.
Because there might be a situation where you say, oh, this report is actually not quite ready yet, so I don't want to publish this to my users. Then you can actually just go back and delete the page you extended this to, save it again as an object. And basically what we do now is that we clean up again. So not only can we add an extension, but we can actually also clean it up again. Now I just need to update my page. in order for this to show. So if I look at the vendor list one more time, and I look at the reports, it should not be there any longer. Oops, yeah, it's gone. So we do it, and we also clean up if necessary. Back to you, Mark. Mark, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine, but if I mute myself, then you cannot hear me.
That's true. That's true.
It's
So as a consultant,
webinar.
I'm done now at the customer side, and you can take over as a developer.
Yep. So let me make myself presenter again. And this puts us in the classic Navision situation like we had in the good old days when the consultant would go into the customer and please the customer, would talk to them and say, okay, what do you want this report to be? And then the consultant throws it over the fence to the developer, and the developer has to figure out how to make it work. Maybe add some AL code, but of course, as a first-class citizen, we also want to push this into GitHub, and we want to add source control. We just don't want this code to be dangling in the sandbox with a customer like this. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and for that I have prepared a GitHub repository in our demo environment. So if you go to reports ForNAV /ForNAV webinar demo, you will find that I have created a blank GitHub project that I can work with. And if I go to my Visual Studio Code, you will see that I have only my license and my README file. And the only thing I did is I've added a gitignore file because GitHub does not know a default gitignore file yet for AL projects. And now I need to fetch my code. And I'm working on the same sandbox as Jan. So I can basically go into setup and extensions, go to the extensions screen, and find the extension that Jan was working with, which in our case is Web02. This is the code that he just wrote. And I can download the source code directly from the sandbox. And if I do that, I open my zip file, and the zip file contains the report and the layout and some details that I need for my project. And I can now copy this to the clipboard. I can take this to my code in my project, paste it, and if I now go back to VS Code, you will see that all lights are green. Git says that they are updated. As a developer, I can now add some AL code. I can clean the code up a little bit if I want to. I can design the report directly from Visual Studio Code by opening the report from VS Code. And of course, if a customer already has its own per tenant extension, it's certainly not our recommendation to make each single report in its own extension. That will not lead to a manageable situation. So if the customer already has existing code, I will probably want to do this, but then with their existing project, and then add it to the GitHub. And then from that moment forward, the code is managed. And as a developer, we can finish it. And if the customer is happy, we can push it into their production environment. Right, so with that, it's time to switch from the designer to the next topic, which is the report pack. Again, based on feedback from you guys, we did some changes. I'm first going to tell you how to get the reports if you want to work with them. Of course, the easiest way to get the reports is to work with Business Central hosted by Microsoft, because then you can use AppSource. But if you have an on-prem customer, you can download the report packs from the gallery. You can go into the same window that Jan went into to create the report using the templates. But instead of a template, you choose to download the report pack as an extension app. And this will basically get the report pack for you, just the same as we push with Microsoft to AppSource. And now from that point onwards, you can unzip the project and get creative and build your own reports with that. You can also cherry pick a report and clone it. You can do that if you have the connection with the server from the connection window. And this allows you to download a specific report and start making changes to that. Of course, once you do that, you cannot save the specific report back into the database. You will have to create a copy. But we all know that this always has been best practice with Navision also in the past. You never change a report, you always create a copy. So this is the full list of ForNAV standard reports that we ship from AppSource and from the report gallery. All of those reports are cleaned up, leveraging the max of the ForNAV capabilities, which includes the templates. And if I gray out the reports that were not updated or new, you will see that we've actually added quite a big list of new reports. The proforma invoice and the draft invoice were created based on customer feedback. The same goes for service management reports. We had a couple of partners, both in Denmark and Germany, requesting those reports. The warehouse reports, actually, I needed myself for a project, so a little bit selfish there. You can also see that we have a couple of list reports. And as an experienced NAV or Business Central developer, you may wonder why we as ForNAV ship simple list reports like a customer list or contact list. But this is again to empower users to get started quickly. An end user can actually take our customer list and simply design it from the web client and play around with the columns, change the font a little bit, and create a customer list like he or she desires within 30 seconds. So it even increases the success rate from 5 minutes, like Jan showed with a brand new report, to 30 seconds by just picking a report that already exists. The label reports that we ship bundle very nicely with the direct printing option that we now have. I'm actually going to show those in the direct printing demo that we have all the way at the end of the webinar. Today we don't have time to deep dive into all of the options that we can do with the labels. We did that in the previous webinar that you can find on YouTube. And there I'm explaining the differences between the different label types that we have and how to work with that in your own application. Today I'm going to demo the sales shipment label because that's probably one of the most frequently used application areas where labels have value together with manufacturing. We also have a production order label. But right now I'm going into sales shipment and the posted version of that. And I want to print a label for the pallets that I'm going to send to my customer. We've added the labels directly to the page by adding page extensions to our app in AppSource. This is one of the advantages that we get from working with extensions. In the past, when we were on Seaside, we did not want you guys to be merging our code with your code. But now with extensions, it's actually possible for us to push these menu items without bothering you with merging. So we can directly print the label from the page. And if I hit OK, you will see that this is the template report that we decided on. It's actually one of our partners in Denmark that helped us designing on this design. and this shows the information that's needed for shipping the pallets to our customer. Today, I'm also going to demo the North American check report. We have quite a few folks from North America on the webinar, and this is very important for their market because MICR printing is tedious in Business Central, to say the least, and we try to make check printing as easy as possible. Normally, if you do check printing, you would have to choose between one of the 3 RDLC reports, and we have bundled the check report into one single report, and you simply check from our setup page which MICR encoding and which layout you want to use. For MICR encoding, we support check number, bank routing number, and bank account number, or to include the amount. But if you want, you can also create a per tenant extension and subscribe to one of our events. And then you can make changes to the way that the MICR encoding is done. For layout, we support all of the popular layouts. The default one is check stop stop. The font size is out of the box set up to print 9 lines in the stop. If you design the report and you make it smaller, you make the font size smaller, you can increase the stop lines. That's something that you can fiddle around with yourself. You can use a watermark and signatures to make the check look nicer, adding a company logo or something like that. And you can also set up a threshold to say, okay, from this amount forward, the second signature is needed, yes or no. And all of these visual elements are vectorized, which means that you can upload a PDF. And no matter if you print the signature very small or very large, it will also always be razor sharp, and you will never print a signature that's a little bit like Mario was on the Nintendo in 1985. So once you have done that, you can go into the payment journal. And in the payment journal, after you have prepared your payments, you can print the check just like you're used to in Business Central. And in this case, the checks were already printed, so I'm going to reprint them. And if I do that, you will see that the MICR is printed on the PDF. In this case, my check number is 200, and this is my bank account number. And the bank routing number in this database is actually empty, so that's why it's not printing a bank account routing number. The advantage is that if you now switch from check stop stop to stop check check or stop check stop, it's always the same report. So you only have to change one report, and it's always the same. And this is also makes life a lot easier if you have multiple customers printing checks and you know that you have created a very nice check 3 weeks ago. You can just import that layout into the sandbox and continue where you left off with a different customer. And Jan, correct me if I'm wrong, we did a webinar about check reports also a few weeks ago.
That's
where
correct.
we dived into this. Yeah. Okay, so even though I can talk about this all day, we want to leave some time for you guys to do some Q&A. So with that, let's briefly recap the report pack before we go into direct printing. So with ForNAV 5.0, the ForNAV reports are directly on your role center because we have added the page extensions. It makes it a little bit easier to work with ForNAV because you don't have to search for everything. And you can download them either from AppSource or from the ForNAV gallery. And they are available in 18 languages. So let's switch to direct printing. This is something that many of you have requested to see if this is possible. The normal way of printing in Business Central is to set up downloading the PDF, and then you have to open the PDF and send it to a printer. And of course, this is not the way that you want your users to work with a product. If you have a shop floor, you want to do label printing, you just want the label to be printed when somebody releases a sales order or posts the output journal of a production order. So in order to do that, of course, the prerequisite is to install the ForNAV app from AppSource and to install ForNAV the Designer from our website. If you have those two prerequisites, so the app from AppSource and the Designer from the website, what you can basically do is you can do a report.print, tell AL which report you want to print, and then you put the printer name in that you want to print to. As from the next cumulative update in Business Central, you can also start using the printer selections. Currently, with the current build of Business Central, the printer selections are broken because it checks if the printer is installed on the service tier, which of course is hosted by Microsoft, so that does not work. But we talked to Microsoft and they will update that prerequisite. So after that update, you can actually leave this empty, and we will search in that printer list to see, okay, what user is logged into the system, which report are they printing, and we will print that report directly to the correct printer. Of course, this is a little bit hard to demo because the printer is here on my desk, and I would love you to take my word for it. I can say, trust me, it works. But instead, I'm going to show you a little video that I have put on my YouTube channel. And this takes over where I left with my code. So here we have exactly the same code, printing a return label on my Brother QL 800 label printer. Again, a more deep dive of this is found on our YouTube channel, where I explain exactly how I did this. So here I'm releasing the sales return order, and with an event subscriber, I'm going to print the label. And by using the ForNAV direct print option, it prints the label directly on my label printer. Yeah. So with that, as the label is saying, I would like to thank you for listening to me and to Jan for another great webinar with features with ForNAV 5.0. And let's see if we have any questions.
Yes, we have a few. So I think you should. There's one about different tables, Mark. You should read that. But there's also a question on if the MICR font needs to be installed as a prerequisite. It does not. We have the MICR font embedded, and also if you have custom fonts that's not installed default by Windows, we also embed those in the report and make sure that your reports are rendered in the correct way. Then there's a question on does direct printing use any form of data compression? So actually what we do is that we basically take the PDF and we add some additional information. So whatever the PDF takes up in space, our local print also do that, and then we print the PDF.
Yeah.
But we manage it in a way, so yeah.
The direct printing should not be used to print colorful catalogs. It should be used for labels and stuff. And those PDFs should be small again, I guess.
Yeah, but you can also print PDF. It's just the same space.
Yeah. So the question that Chad has is it possible to pull different tables like the purchase order table and the tracking table together to create a template? The answer is yes, we do that. You can create your own dataset using Visual Studio Code. So the demo that Jan was showing is where we have the no-code platform where it doesn't require any knowledge of computer programming to build a simple report. But of course, if you are an experienced developer, you can go into Visual Studio Code, you can make a dataset, and from Visual Studio Code, on top of that dataset, you can build your own reports. We do have putting item tracking information on the document tables in our backlog, and it's probably scheduled to be implemented somewhere during the next year.
And also in most cases, you can actually create the dataset just in the designer. So unless you need code constructs that requires you to do CL or AL programming, we can do it for you in the designer.
Yeah, exactly.
And if I can add, we also have the header line template.
Yeah.
So you can actually do most of it the non-coding way.
Yep. But item tracking has a specific API that we currently don't support.
Nope.
Any other questions?
You're welcome. Don't be shy. And while you think about any additional questions, let me just rephrase the slide here that you can download on fornav.com/download. It's a full version that it contains everything. All we do is we print the watermark so you can test it as you want, and you can also see this recording and many other videos on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, so this is exactly what Chad is asking. Is it possible to get a demo license? But what we actually do is you can just use the product if you want. And if you're ready to buy a license, we will remove the watermark.
Yeah. And if you have a special case where you need a demo license to remove the watermark, we can manage that as well. But in most cases, you don't need it because it's just the watermark. Everything else works. Any other questions?
I don't think so.
No.
Okay. So let me say thank you to you, Mark. And
thank you.
Michael, of course. And thank you for listening in. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact us. So have a great rest of the day. Bye.
Bye.